Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. Today, we have Cherie Ray with us, and Cherie is a coach and consultant to business leaders, teams, couples, and individuals who want to live a more richly connected life with more resilience and creative potential. Cherie, I am so appreciative of you coming on, and I love your topic, so I can't wait to hear more about Check Your Pockets. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. And thank everyone for coming to the call. I'd love for this call to be very fluid and interactive. So what I thought I'd do is just kind of start with what I saw around empty your pockets in the clever way that metaphors kind of come to me. So that's where I thought I would start. And then if you have questions, I say we go for it. So it occurred to me, the topic is empty your pocket. So what occurred to me, I had this insight recently around two relationships that were really stacked. It's all so much clearer after the fact, but they were so stacked with expectations and definitions and ideas and they're long-term relationships. And this is another one of those things that kind of happens in 2020 that seems to be happening all over the place about these opportunities to wake up to things. These two particular relationships, one is like 55 years long and another one's like 40 something years long. And I was noticing how in 2020, they were getting redefined, and it was causing me a lot of upset, a lot of disappointment, and I couldn't understand it. and it just would weigh heavy on my mind, and I had surprises that came out of nowhere that never happened in like the one that's 55 years old. It had never happened before. And so it was also shocking about how much thought got stirred up inside me around these two relationships. And after a while, I couldn't figure out why it was upsetting me so. We always tend to think more about what's upsetting us than less. And, I'm definitely guilty of that. And when the insight came in to me like I had put both of these relationships deep into my pockets way back when. One was a childhood relationship, and another one is a family relationship, and I didn't see that they weren't current definitions of the relationship. They were all based on these concepts and definitions and historical data and personal experiences of these relationships, but none of them were current. And I just, my mind had just grabbed them and put them in my pockets, and it got me to thinking about how much I carry in my pockets: concepts, ideas, definitions, beliefs, the way it looks like life works, all these things that over time, if we're fortunate enough to live long enough, we just keep stuffing these things in our pocket. And so as I noticed that with these two relationships, it was like everything that caused me suffering was my mind would try to match today's circumstances of the relationship and how it once was, the memories of the relationship, how it is today, how it was, the connection that was there then, the shift and change of connection that is today, So I was kind of in between those things, and in the middle of those two things was me suffering, kind of wondering, what have I done wrong? What's happening? I don't know how to fix this. So what I saw was in these two examples, I didn't have a clean definition. I mean, I didn't have a clean experience of these two relationships. They weren't clean in the sense of they weren't free of my expectations, my definitions. I don't know what their definitions were, but I know mine were, um, how a friend shows up in the world. A real friend is dot dot dot. You know, a, a, a good relative does dot dot dot. So that's I'm kind of repetitive, but it's that, how many of those concepts and ideas I carried that would contaminate this moment and my ability to connect with these two people, because even if I reached out to want to connect to them, pow, they weren't meeting my expectations. I'd be disappointed and, not to be melodramatic, but heartbroken. But that was really my experience. I was heartbroken because it wasn't happening. I would kind of bat the ball back over the net, but nothing would come back. So of course my mind would go into trying to make a strategy of, well, that means I'm not reaching out again. Oh, well, then that means they don't care. That means, y'all live in the same mental soup of how many ways stuff gets made up when life life in real time doesn't match our expectations. At least that's the way it plays out for me. Life shows up, and then all of my ideas, concepts, definitions come in to see if it's a Velcro match. And then if it's not, I suffer. So, in that way, I noticed that, and kind of realizing how much of these two relationships were loaded on my side. It just occurred to me, what if I emptied my pockets and I didn't have really anything on these two relationships? What could happen? What could happen? And so I started playing with that, going, what if all these ideas that I have are truly just mine? they're not shared, they're not a reflection of the world. They're just a reflection of what my mind has made up in these situations. But really, with these two situations, they had been in place for so long, like 40 plus years and 55 years. In my innocence, I really thought that was how life was, because they'd been so consistent for so long. It was really a gift to have these long-term relationships, but I really saw them as these are a reflection of life, not a reflection of how I'm holding them. In all of my ideas and concepts and expectations and definitions and hopes and dreams and wishes and desires and all that I found deep into my pockets once I started to wake up from this. So as it kind of unfolded, and this was my attempt to step outside of all my ideas and concepts. They're still there. They're like the neighbor's barking dog. They're still there, but I'm trying to not listen to them so much, try to not be so oriented to them so much, trying to not really trying to step out of them and step into as clean a space as humanly possible for me at the moment. No perfection, but just like, okay, if I see how that I could live in that soup and live in that story and live in those uh, uh, definitions of relationships. Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to come back to that. Thank you, thank you. So, and I appreciate the input. So, if you reflect in your own life, do you feel like you have concepts and ideas about relationships or even the people you're in relationship with? Like, what's a good relationship? What's a bad relationship? A worthwhile relationship is when people show up like X, Y, and Z. So that would be what I'm pointing to, like these very hidden um, agendas or definitions or descriptions that we don't even know we're carrying. In our innocence, it's completely innocent. So let me just check in with Wendy. Wendy, does that help reset and make it more clear what I'm trying to point to? If not, let me know. If not, let me know. So, so this is what the other point I'm trying to say is if we don't even need to wake up to what those definitions and concepts are. What will be our feedback system is if we're suffering around, certain topics. I'm using relationships for an example, but on any topic where we find ourselves suffering or having disappointment or having problems that we need to solve, I think that would be a place of checking your pockets to see what you're holding on those things. What am I holding on that in a place of reflection? And so with that in mind, it occurred to me to show up in these two relationships that I really saw as my a laboratory to try this out, to just show up and play with the idea of if I just got present in the conversation, just present in the conversation, that was really all that was, not all, but that was really what was going to be most helpful to me, to see who these people were and to see what this relationship is with empty pockets, like showing up with nothing on how I show up, how they show up, to be curious about who's this person today, not who we were in 7th grade riding our bikes around town. It's like, who is this person today? And what I found is, for me, the place that helps me relax is that I don't have to carry anything to the conversation. I don't need to thank you, Winnie. I don't need to protect myself, or I don't need to know the right thing to say. I don't need to run ahead of the conversation and say, well, gosh, when I used to bring that up, that used to really irritate her. I'm not going to bring that up. All these kind of agendas and strategies that we might drag into a very clean, open place of potential and possibility. And I would catch myself doing that, going, oh, I don't want to ask too many questions. She'll think I'm getting in her business. That always makes her mad. I don't want to, do I need to text before I just pick up the phone and call? All of this kind of very innocent strategizing in order to be in relationship, which was a lot of work for me. That's the part that I found so interesting. If once I empty my pockets, all I need to do is show up and address, like, who this person is right now, what's going on, and not be so concerned with my concepts of right and wrong and good and bad, can and can't, you know. Because if you know, if what they say is true, that the days in the world, that our wisdom, our solutions, our what we need to know in the moment will show up in the moment. How can I, it just occurred to me, how can I show up cleaner, clearer in the moment and see what shows up with nothing, you know, kind of looking in the direction that's opposites to all my strategies, opposites to trying to stay safe and protected and free of disappointment. And you know, I don't know if it feels like that, y'all, but it really feels like that as I reflect, like running a marathon, you know, to be in relationship with somebody and to seeing that feeling like I'm running a marathon is all on my side of the line. They're not doing anything. They probably they haven't even picked up the phone yet. And I'm on my 26th mile of anticipating, doing some agendas, just checking it out, you know, who I need to be on the call to be a good friend. So I'm curious, just in this moment, if what you're hearing in any of that, and if it even relates to anything that you can see in your own experience of life or your own experience of relationships, or when a perfectly clear moment gets contaminated by our ideas and concepts that we carry, that we don't even realize we carry. Ellen.
I hope that the video on is not distracting. I'm
Oh,
babysitting.
no, it's precious. It's wonderful to see her.
So, I mean, having this grandchild in my life has been like such a example of everything that you're saying, because there is nothing other than what's present when I'm with her. And I see the difference in, you know, in other relationships for sure. And that when I remind myself, yes, when I remind myself, you know, just what you're saying, what's here and now and present, it's a completely different experience of relationship than when I bring the whole, you know, decades of history.
Exactly. And it's like I heard an expectant mom say this the other day, and I thought it was so relevant to what, you know, what this topic that's been on my plate is, that she doesn't want to know if it's a male or female baby. And she's putting it out there that she doesn't want pink or blue, you know? And I said, why? And she said, because I don't want people putting their definitions of pink and blue on my child. And I was like, isn't that a fresh idea? You know, because in our own innocence, we'll think, well, let's get a truck or let's get a tea set, you know? So again, innocently, that's another one of those ideas or concepts that takes a completely neutral moment of possibility and puts some of me in it, you know?
Yes. And then the other relationship where it's so true for Cherie is the relationship with myself. And how I bring my past ideas of myself or my past thoughts present, and then have that experience.
Exactly. And in that too, Ellen, in our innocence, you know, we think we know what we're capable of. We think we know what's possible for us. And all that is contaminating the truth of pure possibility and limitlessness in life in any moment. See, she gets it. She could teach this conversation.
Yeah.
Her resilience is right there. You know, she's got nothing on any of it. Exactly. Exactly.
You can say hi. Say hi to my friends. Thank you for this conversation, and I hope she's entertaining and not distracting.
Not
So
cute. I think it's a great poster child for this conversation. It's like we allow ourselves to hold young children innocent, you know, because we don't have a lot of history on them yet. So they get a hall pass for a whole lot of stuff. So if we live long enough, we don't give other people a hall pass on all our stuff, or just their what we've observed about them in their life. You know, we'll start to label them like, oh well, they're the wild one of the bunch. You know, it's like, wow.
and my final words are just like how subtle it all is.
Very subtle.
Very subtle. You know, we're not aware of it until, and so thank you for bringing it into all of our awarenesses.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Anybody else have any ideas on what might be striking a chord in you?
I would like to share. It's Rachel.
Great, Rachel.
Hi, thank you so much. And hi, everyone. Hi, Ellen. Kinneret. So the concept of emptying your pocket, the moment you said that, the topic, I was like, oh, wow, how timely. Because in our tradition, this is the time, you know, I'm Jewish and we have the New Year now, and we actually have this tradition where we go to a water source, a river, a pond, somewhere, and we literally take our pockets out and empty our pockets.
Really?
Yeah, but those are for our sins. Those are for our wrongdoings in the last year. So we are actually doing that to clear up our pockets. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing, the landline. One more and it's going to be done. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I told you it's going to be done. And so that is like, wow, okay, so we got it right, but almost right, because it's like, it's not about the concepts about, it's just what did we do wrong? So we're taking an inventory, what did we do wrong? But it's like, what I heard from what you said is like what I was thinking, not in the way of like being wrong, but like innocently or mistakenly, that I took for granted. And I added this morning, like Helen said, about my relationship with myself. I'm dealing with cancer, and I went today to see the doctor. Of course, I didn't want to see him, and I had my CT test back, and the liver lesions have grown. And I was already prepared before, like I already threw the fit here, you know, on Thursday when I did the test. I was like a mess. And so today I was like less of an upset about it. But even that thought that I have control over it, that thought that everything that I'm doing can control it, that thought that, you know, that I know, that I can, you know, or that I can't. So it's like, it's both ends. It's like going from I'm powerful and I'm going to do and seek whatever is out there and I'm going to control the situation. And that's true not just with cancer for me. It's true for construction, and Ellen is laughing because she knows me well. It's true for, yeah. It's true for every situation. I either am absolutely, it's up to me, or it's absolutely I'm failed and there's nothing I can do. And I'm going into absolute disappointment and like, you know, I'm no good, I'm not capable, you know, I'm a failure, I'm a victim, I'm doomed. And it's like, I'm seeing that. I see this way of thinking, of like like I'm giving up. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, I can't give up. I have to do something. What can I do now? And it's just like this thing of like, rather than being in the moment of, okay, well, let's gather some information. Let's just breathe. And as far as relationships, oh my God, I had a lifelong relationship with my brother that was, actually did a master, like a full year of a master degree semester on that relationship, and at the University of Santa Monica. And it still years later was like rocky. Because I was holding how a brother is supposed to care and behave, and how family needs to look like, and how my sister-in-law needs to show up. And then I was dismissing all my other relationships that weren't family, because they weren't family. And it was interesting because the moment I let go of that and I just accepted what is, and I started seeing how people show up, and rather than holding one person, like, if this person shows up a certain way, then I'm okay. I released that to the concept of like, okay, this person can show up this way, and this person shows up this way, and this person just shows up. One is just texting, and one is calling, and one can drive me, and one can buy me some groceries, and one is calling me once every 6 months, and one is when I post something, they post something, or just then somebody is just saying like, and it became this, like it's like my love, my support, my relationships are coming from spirit. Mm-hmm. The spirit is my supplier of my relationships, of my love, of my, care in the world, like the extended care. And the moment I got to see that and experience that, suddenly my brother is off the hook. And I stopped being jealous at his relationship, in his family, and his kids, and all of that. And I'm like, whenever he's calling, I'm loving. That's it, and I am I'm showing up the way I can show up at that moment. But, I'm no longer holding him hostage.
That's beautiful, Rachel. And for you, when you do make contact with him, do you feel like you're having a better quality connection just with him?
I guess it's more of being present. There's no expectation.
No, but I mean, perfect.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's better. I mean, if you ask him, we always had a fabulous relationship. where I thought we had none. He always thought everything was fine. Everything was great. And for me, it was like, what are you talking about?
Perfect example. That what was in your pockets and what's in his pockets are completely different.
Totally different. But because I don't have strings attached, there's no expectation for him to call me. Just because he knows I had my CT scan on Thursday and I went to the doctor today, and I would in the past say, and I still think that a normal brother would at least, you don't need to remember anything because that's too hard, but you have like your smart iPhone and you can log it in and you can put a note to myself, call sister because, just do that. I mean, you don't really need to really care that much. Just follow up, just do, and this is an highly intelligent, very, a senior VP at the company, blah, blah, blah. It's not like somebody who is like really like, is like on the autistic, mentally challenged or something. No, he's just emotionally challenged, but that's a different story. But the moment my experience, there's no bitter taste for me after. So basically, my landscape is prettier. My flowers are brighter, because it's like, oh well. So I don't go, because I would have every conversation with him. Every word became a full story of what it meant, what he said, and how he said it.
And how it, and how if we have all these ideas and concepts on, it's like they could say good morning, and if it
Yeah,
didn't,
I
you're
tell
supposed
you.
to say this,
Yeah,
see how we would always want to match it back to what we, to use our
exactly.
metaphor today, match it back to what was in my pocket. It's like, how dare he show up and not say XYZ, you know,
Right.
that,
Right.
that you're seeing also clearly that, uh, you're seeing so clearly with your eyes how simple it is, per your perspective of your own, ideas, concepts, and expectation. It's so clear and so obvious. He would trip on it in the room, except to him, his
Yeah.
pockets are empty on that one. It's very different. He can't
Yeah.
see what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And that's all innocent. That is so completely innocent.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that I would show him where where the step stairs or the hole in the floor is. It doesn't matter. He's not gonna see that. He can't even see that. I'm like, look, there's a hole here. You're tripping. No,
I,
he's gonna go and jump right into the hole because in his mind there's no hole there.
in his mind, there's no hole there. And when you say that, I just see too how many lost opportunities between two people just to be with each other and see who you are and how you are today. Just that innocence. As our mind gets busy about they're not meeting my expectations or my definition of whatever, all of that marathon my mind is running. I mean, I saw this in my eyes. Like, I can't even just be present and see how are they doing today? What's up with them today? Who,
But with that said, though, it gives me the freedom to not hold on to those, especially the old-time relationships. It's like really letting them go because I have friends that I really love and I know they love me, but there's nothing there anymore.
right? No harm, no foul. Nobody's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right.
And it's pleasant when we meet, but it takes too much effort to do that. And it's like, why? So I can now allow myself to let go of relationships that were like in my pockets for a very long time, just to feel that my pockets are full with friends and relationships of like, there's no need to hold on to relationships and people.
No, and there's no need to there's no need to have a reason to hold on to them or to let them go. It's much more free to just not, you don't have to have a reason why you're not in contact. When people go, well, how come you hadn't been around? So it's like, just hasn't worked out, but it doesn't mean anything about them. It doesn't
Right.
mean anything about me. The space
Right.
is still very open because in the next minute, like we're all, I believe, trying to be less influenced by our ideas and concepts and what our mind is making up, trying to be less influenced by that and more curious about just pure potential and possibility, just pure potential and possibility, and what could come from that. And that's the part that I find so fascinating, that you get completely surprised if I'm not distracted in how they're not making the mark. Not meeting my mark of expectation,
Yeah.
and then I just love that idea that nobody has to be wrong for the relationship to be in its present state.
Right.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to? Yes, you have to tell me how to say your name because I don't want to mess it up. Canary. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, so I appreciate your talk, and I emptied my pockets in many of my relationships in the last few years. Just anything that I saw that was not harmonious, I just let go of whatever script was running this being about the other person needing to be different than who they are. And whatever meaning that I assigned to them. And shockingly, all my relationships got much better. And that was great. You know, I really went systematically, like person by person, anything that I held on anybody, anything that was in my pocket. And I was like, I'm just going to empty everything. You know, I wrote this down. I looked at everything that was running me, and I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. So really everything got better, and I thought, oh, life is so good and great and wonderful. Yeah. And then I was challenged again, yet again. You know, this one was, you know, with my dad and stepmom. And I'm still challenged. And I'm having a hard time now emptying this pocket because what's coming, it's hard, you know, what's coming at me. You know, COVID-19 did a little number on my finances, and my dad, bless his heart, decided to pay my rent for a year. And I didn't ask. I was fine living in a tent, you know, but he was like, no, I don't want you living in a tent. You know, how about I chip in and I'll pay rent for a year. And I was like, wow, that is so generous. And I didn't even know what to do with that. Of course, this didn't come just generous. It came with strings attached. And that means that every, I don't know, a week or two, I would get the phone call of, what are you doing? You send resumes. What's going on? You know, and I was happy to share until he got to the point where it was too much for me to handle. And at this point I said, hey, you know, I love you. I'm happy to share stuff with you. Give me some space, you know, speak to me nicely, like ask me from a respectful point, not we're on the same team. Anyway, his wife took over and she told me I should be ashamed of myself, you know, for how I'm doing my life and how I'm a burden financially. And that was hard. It was hard. And I said, well, you know, you guys have a right to view me any way you'd like, but it's not helpful for me as I'm moving forward, rebuilding life, getting new things. I, you know, would be just easier. And they just refused to see anything positive about it. So I halted the connection. I said, you know, if we can't speak nicely right now to each other without judgment or shaming or any type of criticism, then I'd rather not speak. At this point, I can handle kind and respect in communication. And that's the only wisdom I had at the moment. You know, so now I'm again, you know, in a place where I need to empty my pockets again, you know, with this new phase. I thought I was done. I thought I could, this was okay. It was all clean, and there it comes again, you know, in a way that's hard for me to handle, you know, hearing, you know, whatever, criticism, the way that it's coming at. So it's like it's an ongoing process.
It is, because if we really see that human beings are kind of programmed to believe what we tell ourselves, you know, we're really, you know, we're kind of programmed to believe what comes into our mind. And when those things come into our mind, it's like our mind grabs them and puts them back in the pocket, you know? It's like, oh, they shouldn't show up and be like this, you know? So it's we have this mind that's always generating thought, but it's always grabbing at stuff, and instead of it just being you know, a stream of thoughts coming and going, it grabs it and puts it in the pocket. It's always grabbing. At least my mind's always trying to grab to try to find something that's fixed and true about the world, you know, like, and that's why I just laugh. It's like my mind is so grabby at you know, the right and wrong of things. They shouldn't, I shouldn't, we shouldn't, you know, and then it goes in my pockets and it goes in my pockets and it goes in my pockets.
Yeah. And, you know, and then there's the added layer of, you know, of the quick ego that comes in and wants to defend itself. oh, you can't say that to me. This is like too harsh. And again, gee, if I were, could stay in a space, where people just, vomit criticisms on me, and just be like, cool.
Or it's like, it's interesting when you say that. It's like, gosh, I really didn't realize that in my pocket, I didn't think people had that they had the right to say anything they wanted.
Right.
It's like, gosh, they do have the right to say anything they want. I have the right to not take it seriously,
Yeah. It's such a practice. It's such a
It sure is. It sure is. It's just, and I say, it's like it's just part of being human. We think what they say has something to do with me, and it's like, oh, I can empty that out of my pockets.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting to do it while in conversation.
Well, I mean, we can only do it the best we can, but sometimes when things come out of left field, and, I don't know about you, but it takes me a while to get my feet back underneath me when it's like, what just happened? I'm not sitting on a cushion oming out, we're in the trenches moment to moment, and as clear and clean as we can show up, that's all we've got. It's like, how can I just be, that's the part that I find so interesting. It's like, gosh, could I just be more interested, or just even a little bit interested on what exists outside of all my concepts and beliefs and shoulds and they're supposed to and I'm supposed to, like, what's outside of all that, And in that way, it's like, if we know we're aligning or kind of looking in the direction of the limitless nature of life, it's really the only thing that's really limitless in the nature of life, that wisdom, that source of mind, whatever you want to call it in your world. I don't care what you call it, but it's like, I get less interested in all my me-isms about life. I've got so many me-isms I bore myself after a while. It's like, okay, so. But thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for your feedback.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share about anything on this topic? Be great. I think just what pops in my head too is, just quickly, it's like, if you consider this topic as interesting, it applies to any relationship, and to anything, of course, but especially even work relationships. A lot of people typecast the people in their career world and think, they pretty much have the lock and key on them, and they can just toss it on the shelf because that's who that person is, and that's what they're capable of, and that's how they're going to show up. And hopefully you can see how that would contaminate any possibility of fresh solutions and ideas and just being with someone. But the career work relationships are just as loaded as any other ones with our stuff. I just recently had a conversation with someone who, in their mind, they believed an employer should not speak with a stern tone. It's like, and because they really felt like it had something to do with them. And it's like, well, what if it doesn't have anything to do with you? That's just the tone of their voice. Address it if you want, but it doesn't have anything to do with you. And that opened a door of possibility. That's the part I'm saying, is like, if we can look outside of my me-isms, there's possibility out there that I'm not seeing. But this wisdom will bring you something, because we're all capable of fresh new thinking and ideas and possibilities that we don't see at this moment. So any other questions or comments or curiosity?
I'll jump in.
Great, Marlene, thank you.
I have a younger sister who is just kind of closed minute of her life, I guess is the easiest way to say it. And most of the time I'm quite at peace with that. Like I know that, you know, she's living her life, but other times it's like, I kind of like to get my sister back. But when I think of calling her, contacting her, I pull back because in the past, you know, she's really gives me the cold shoulders. So I can imagine the fresh thinking on my side, but not on her side. So if you have any perspective or insight, I would appreciate that.
Sure, sure. It's like, you know, if you play the game of you've got nothing to lose.
Mm.
You know, if you really saw, if your pockets were empty, you wouldn't have any concepts, ideas of rejection or what could happen or what she's capable of, what I'm capable of, how she's ever showed up at the past. You know, I love that idea of playing on the house as money or playing with Monopoly money. It's like, well, I can't lose at this game. All it is a phone call. That's it.
Right, right.
And especially, I've noticed too, if I come to the call with no expectation, you know, without, you know, I might have butterflies in my tummy. I'm not saying that I'll enter into those conversations and not be wanting to run out of the room too, you know, but it's almost like call me crazy, but what comes to mind to me is I almost put on like a virtual seatbelt going, you're not going anywhere, just stay right here. just stay right here and do the best you can in being present to this conversation, and don't run off, you know, don't run off in your story, don't run off in all my concepts and ideas. It's like, you know, and it really feels like kind of like a Pilates workout, because I'm really strengthening my core to just be present.
Yeah.
When I have no idea what to say or how to say it, and just launch a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that virtual seatbelt.
Yeah.
Just stay here with whatever comes up, and yeah.
Right. If we really knew at our core we had the capacity for what would show up. If we really knew we have what it takes to stay present in the conversation and respond, if we knew that. We don't know how it's going to show up, but if we really knew I have the capacity to stay in this conversation, even if I don't like it, if I'm not comfortable, I have that capacity.
Okay, that's a good point. Just do it as a kind of a test. Well, not so just like as a experiment and a way of being with that.
Yeah, it's all for you. You know, that's the way I look at it. It's all for me. It doesn't have anything to do with them. They just, you know, willingly or unwillingly are helping me play this out in my mind. It's all for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, you know, if you find whatever you find you're feeling at the end, it's like let that go too. You know, because our mind doesn't know how the conversation went. It thinks it does, but it doesn't know how the conversation went, because it's going to be measuring it to all that old stuff we had in our pocket. Let any interpretation go too.
Right. Right.
It's all something to play with. No perfection, just something to play with. At least it gets me out of a very stagnant position, like avoiding a conversation or wishing I could have a conversation, or you know, I kind of engage with life, and then it won't stay the same whether once I engage with it.
Right. Thank you.
My pleasure. Nothing to lose. I love playing that game. Nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Well, if no one else has any questions or any comments or anything, I would love to express my appreciation for you taking time and coming to the call, and then to 3PCG for allowing these wonderful venues of opportunity to learn from so many different people, and what I call a way of really being able to have a smoother ride of life. We know how to do it hard, but I love the idea of understanding ways where it could be smoother.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cherie. I really appreciate this conversation. I related very much because this weekend I was having a conversation where about halfway through I realized, wow, I'm bringing a lot to this conversation from the past. But guess what? The conversation was all in my head. I wasn't even talking to the person.
That's perfect. That kind of points right back to Marlene. I wonder how many conversations she's had with her sister only in her mind. You know what I mean? That me too.
Yeah, and it just cleared everything up, and I don't even feel like I have to worry about having that, that contact anymore. So it was just really, really a timely talk. Thank you so much. And thanks,
So relevant. Thank you.
thanks everybody for coming on live. And just want to let you know that the next webinar is on October 7th, and it's with Amir Karkouti. So hopefully you'll be able to join us live then. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. It's great to see your faces.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much. Loved it.
Thanks so much.